Summer's coming, and with it, rising temperatures, surging demand, and the threat of higher power bills or even supply shortages. But it's not just the heat. Global uncertainty from new U.S. tariffs is also weighing on the power sector, just as regulators push for energy firms to go public. From fast-tracking power deals to reassessing the IPO pipeline, the Energy Regulatory Commission is right in the middle of it all. Today, ERC Chairman Monalisa Dimalanta joins us to talk summer readiness, IPO compliance, and what's next for the power supply, rates, and the future energy mix. Hi, Chair Mona. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Mikey.
Okay, summer is just about here. Air conditioners are working on overtime. Will we have enough supply for the season and beyond?
Based on the DOE projections and the projections also of our system operator, NGCP, it looks like there will be enough supply, but we're always getting ready for the unplanned or the unforeseen, right? And like last year, initially, the DOE said there are no foreseen red alerts or shortages, but then come summer, come May in particular, we experience a lot of shortages because of plants going on what we call unplanned outages. So those are the things that we really need to prepare for. We need to brace ourselves for the unforeseen.
This is a time when everybody just needs the grid even more. And
Correct.
the unplanned outages, as you call them, that's really technical issues, right? Something breaks down.
Yes.
Right?
Equipment breakdown or a line gets cut, something in the substation breaks down. So it could be in the line, it could be in on the plant side where things just break down.
On another front, Chair Mona, you are fast-tracking the approval of new supply agreements, particularly for the summer, and to keep energy prices down and to really keep them stable also, and that's avoiding the price hikes. Can you tell us more about where we are in this process?
Okay, it's actually electric utilities, distribution utilities, and electric cooperatives go through quite admittedly a tedious process of procuring supply. So, and it all ends up at the Regulatory Commission where they ask for approvals. So once we have those applications with us, we complete our evaluation and give them, and we have been fast-tracking more than, I think we've covered more than 15 by now preliminary approvals for the supply agreements to the consumers so that the prices get to be predictable to the consumers and they don't get exposed to what we call the wholesale electricity spot market, where prices are really volatile because it's trading happens every 5 minutes. So imagine that volatility being shouldered by consumers. So we don't want that. That's why we're fast-tracking the approvals of
What's
these.
the target number of approvals to be, fast-tracked
We want to
and ready to
clean
go
them.
for the summer?
We want to clean them all up before May starts. We still have, I think, about 20 with us for preliminary approvals. We're on our way. The law sets a 75-day period for us from filing for the issuance of our preliminary approvals, and we always have recently been meeting those timelines.
Now, apart from the usual summer peak demand, what are the other factors that might push prices higher in the coming months, whether they be external factors or local factors?
Well, aside from the summer months, we always, as I mentioned earlier, things we don't anticipate, but admittedly they happen. Equipment breakdown, unplanned outages, but also on the external factors, we still don't know the effect of the tariffs. We have plants that are being built that are admittedly very dependent on the global supply chain. We don't know yet the effect of the tariffs recently imposed by the U.S. on this whole supply chain for our no power stations.
The effect of the tariffs on the global supply chain, we've yet to see that. In a related topic, the volatile market is not the best time for IPOs. And since 2001, the ERC has been pushing for more power firms to go public under EPIRA. But in this kind of economic environment globally, it's not the best time to list. How are you scaling back your expectations to calibrate them for the conditions on the ground?
I think the regulator has been realistic on this front. As you mentioned, the requirement has been there since 2001, and we still have a very low compliance rate. As much as we would want to, pull out the hard enforcer hat and put on the hard enforcer hat, we know it's not going to work, and it's going to be like a self-inflicted wound, because we'll be taking out or pulling out the permits from power generation plants that are fully functional, supplying the system, just because they're not able to comply with the listing requirement. So
right, and we can't. We need all the supply we can get right now.
We need all the supply we can get. So I think from this end, as long as, and this is what we've been emphasizing to our generation companies, as long as you show us some proof that you have, in good faith, tried to comply, but the external conditions, which are beyond your control, are really
definitely
not
beyond their control now.
Correct, and it's quite ironic, because we just a few days ago we launched with the SEC.
Correct.
A streamlined process
An initiative
for listing
to help streamline listing, but
yes,
even that,
I know.
Again, unplanned outage.
Correct.
Okay, all right. On another front, the Philippines has one of the highest electricity rates in Southeast Asia. We are at around 11 to 13 pesos per kilowatt hour, second only to Singapore, whereas countries like Vietnam and Malaysia pay much less. 4 to 7 pesos in Malaysia, Vietnam, and Indonesia. But this is also because in their countries, it's subsidized by the government.
Yes.
In our case, it's taxed all the way through the supply chain.
Correct.
And we have 3. Before it was just the national grid, correct me if I'm wrong. National Power Corporation. But now we've got 3. We've got the power, we've got the distribution, and we've got the transmission, and VAT.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us, explain to us, why is power so expensive in the Philippines, and what needs to be done to bring that down?
Okay, well, the first thing is really, we don't enjoy subsidies. Our neighbors that you mentioned earlier enjoying lower power rates, they are heavily subsidized. The consumer bills are heavily subsidized. Also because they have the resources that they export that enable them to subsidize the power bills. For example, coal. Our system is still heavily reliant on coal that we import from Indonesia.
Yes.
So we buy them from Indonesia. Indonesia enjoys the dollars that we pay them. So Indonesia can afford to subsidize their consumers' power bills.
They tax elsewhere, not the people.
Correct. And then, so now, we don't enjoy any subsidy. We pay for imported fuels, not just coal, but also natural gas now, with Malampaya significantly declining in its supply. So we do not only do we not enjoy the subsidies because the state is not enabled, because we don't have those resources that enable us to extend the subsidy. On top of that, as you mentioned, our power rates are subject to taxes. The regular VAT for non-renewables. For renewables, it's better. We enjoy zero
That's why the
VAT.
push to shift to renewables,
Correct.
zero VAT, and we don't need to import it.
Correct. So that's why the direction really of government is to increase the share of renewables. Today, our renewables on a good day, in our power mix, on a good day, renewables cover about 20% of our mix. So the goal is to increase that to 35% by 2030, so that we can let go of some of our imported fuel requirements.
And to 50% by 2040.
Correct.
A couple of other things. Some say the time of use system is currently outdated. So there are 2 prices. There's peak and there's off-peak.
Correct.
In 2025, what do you suggest? What is the ERC recommending in lieu of this relatively dated time of use scheme? What are your thoughts?
Dated. That's I don't think anyone would deny that it's quite outdated. We need to revisit. We need to revamp the whole thing. Currently, as you correctly mentioned, it only works with peak off-peak. But today, because of the entry of also of solar panels, homes that have solar panels and what we call now prosumers, not just consumers, consumers who also produce their own supply, especially during the day, we have two peak periods, actually, what we call the daytime peak and the evening peak. And the evening peak is actually much higher than the daytime peak. So the two pricing system in our current time of use program is no longer a fit to the realities of the day. If we want to make it really relevant to our consumers, we need to also adjust this framework so that it fits the current consuming behavior, the consuming pattern of our consumers.
Okay, another thing, the DOE has outlined a roadmap to introduce nuclear power into our energy mix. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the ERC has always been, as several times mentioned by the Supreme Court, ruled by the Supreme Court, the ERC enforces the policies that are issued by the Department of Energy. So if the Department of Energy adopts nuclear as a
they direct the policy,
they direct the policy, they issue the policy, then we have to enforce. We're preparing for it. We're joining the missions of the DOE in various countries to look at the different regulatory framework.
And one more thing, should we stop producing coal-fired plants?
At this point in time, we cannot afford it.
Okay.
to be very
afford
honest.
to stop producing new coal plants. We just need new capacity, regardless of how that might be.
The policy of the DOE is that there will be no new coal plants. But if the question is, do we stop producing from the current generation plants that are utilizing coal, we really cannot afford it. Our system relies about 60% from coal plants at the moment. So retiring them overnight or even in the near term may not be feasible.
That's a big part of our energy mix. Okay, before we go, can you give us some smart energy habits? I know you're telling us, summer's just around the corner, and I was asking you, do we need generators? And you said solar, go solar. But also buy a battery so that you can use it even in the evening. What other tips can you give us?
Well, that's one, definitely. We've been pushing for what we call the net metering program, because I don't know if this is common knowledge, but when you put solar panels in your homes and you register, and please make sure you register your solar panels and enroll in what we call the net metering program. If you are out of the house, for example, you go on vacation, then it continues to generate. You are actually selling to the system, and the sale gets discounted from your bills. So it actually results in significantly lower bills, especially during the summer months. So that's first. The second, for those who do not have the means to invest in solar or solar plus battery, we currently have a program, what we call the retail aggregation program, where you can actually source directly from a supplier of choice if you are part of that generation that really wants renewables to be supplied by renewables. You can partner with your neighbors or with your if you're part of a business, maybe your businesses can be part of this program, where you can aggregate your demand and source from a cheaper supplier.
So many more options coming online. Thank you so much for your time, Chair Mona. Always good to have you and to talk about power, because it's what fuels the economy.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Always a pleasure.
Okay.